Yo, what is up, everybody? John from Tau Tactics here, bringing you another video. Today, we're talking to Trent Bates. Trent went first overall at the Dreamhack Invitational in Atlanta, the one that Art of War put together. He played an Art of War team member, and yeah, really great conversation. Super awesome list, max crisis suits, super awesome dude. So without further ado, we're gonna get right into it. Yeah, so where I'd love to start, Trent, is just tell me a little bit more about how you got into playing 40K and like Tau.
Sure. So I started in like third edition when I was in junior high,
Hmm.
right?
Okay.
So I actually remember when Tau conceptually, along with Necrons, were actually like added to the game. So I
Really?
remember that line that came out. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Never played them, right? And I played all the way up until like I said, like Feast of Blades. So sixth edition was the last. Right when they started letting armies mix with that weird ally table,
Yep.
I got out of the game. And so I played War Machine for a long time, and I came back in eighth. And funny enough, the army that I always wanted to collect back in the day was like a Death Guard mech army, right? And so that's
Mm.
where I started back to eighth. And I haven't touched Tau as a faction pretty much up until now, up
Wow.
until this be 2 months before, a month before, I
No
want to
shit.
say. So, yeah,
Very interesting.
I I personally hate the look of like the Tau without their helmets.
Uh-huh.
So I only
Yeah, fair.
because I can't stand those fish faces, man. Just so much.
Very
But the
fair.
suit's great, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's what got me into it. I remember Farsight from his original model.
sure.
He's always been the cool one, right? It's
Hell
neat
yeah.
to play the dude, and so I think he's got some pretty relevant rules.
Yeah,
And Ret Cadre is definitely his faction,
for
or
sure.
his faction for me. So
Yeah,
that's just picked it, right? I just
sure.
um
Oh, you're talking about
and
for the tournament? It wasn't like, okay, I looked at this attachment, I'm like, this shit's actually busted. Um, yeah.
I mean, well, the thing about Tau, right, is and what leaned me into Ret Cadre specifically
Hmm.
was that Tal likes to make that like very fixed position gun line, right? That it branches out from and eventually takes over the table.
Hmm.
Uh, and I didn't want to do that,
Yeah.
right? I feel like that's counterable and it's predictable in all
Hmm.
Tal lists,
I
right? And
agree.
that's not make it bad. It's how they play. It's how people expect you to
It's
play.
pretty straightforward, and it's like a known play pattern. Like people know how to
Correct.
play around it and play into it. It's not, yeah, like you said, predictable.
Yeah, and so what I found with Ret Cadre is I could put 1,000 points in my army with a 3-inch deep strike stratagem, in reserves, and the suit units to me are amazing in
Yeah,
what they do.
they
Right?
are.
They're so specific, and I know a lot of people were really resistant to just not being able to pick and choose and combo the war gear as you wanted,
Yeah.
but it was so smart for GW to break them apart how they did
Hmm.
because then depending on what suit you pick, obviously with the limited systems, they get a rule that actually matters to those guns, makes them relevant, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so what I ended up doing with the army is I found that if I went as minimalist as I could with like my fixed position, typical Tau play style,
Yep.
right, and I kept half of it in reserve, is when I play like the pressure armies or the aggression armies, I can just pick a portion of the table and carve that out for myself. In many cases, like I played the Hard Black Templars list as a practice.
Hmm.
I literally created table edges with the dude,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Right. Um,
You just flip the field.
yeah. I mean, the Army deep strikes, 3-inch deep strikes, you know, it answers infantry better than anything,
Hmm.
frankly. Star
Yep,
sights are just the superior suit, I think, in that detachment. But
100%. I was talking with some buddies about it. I was for a moment there. I was thinking the flamers were the best, but it does seem like the burst cannons are the way to go. The strength six is so important, um, and the volume with the sustain two strat is just nasty.
it is, yeah. And I mean, that commander, like, I
Yeah.
only run a single burst cannon unit.
Hmm.
Um, So however you want to structure this, I'm happy to like go back if we need to rewind. But
No, just riff, man.
yeah. So with the burst cannon unit, I only run a single with the Coldstar because to me the flamers are measurably more useful in that you don't need to guide them, right? Because what the really wants for is guiding units that guide other units, right?
Yeah. And that is a weak point for Ret Cadre because it's hard to get the angle sometimes.
Yep.
For the guides.
Yeah, exactly. And so I run a single burst cannon unit with Star Flare. I think the Star Flare is best on that. I know a lot of people tend to lean on the fusion to redeploy rapidly, but to me, it's that burst cannon unit MVP for me all tournament, right?
Yeah.
It does nothing but remove problems for you,
Sure.
right? And what's funny about it is it removes problems so efficiently that I find people end up having to ignore the fusion units to chase it down sometimes. It doesn't work because
that's priority number one. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of my concept for the list. I mean, the ghost keels are there because you need, and the piranhas exist, simply just to drag people out, right? Because I don't want them to feel like they can turtle against me, right? And make me have to play a front to back game. I want them to have to, make screening compromises when they play me.
Yeah.
And I mean, the ghost keels also, they answer the long range shooting matchup because obviously Ret Cadre doesn't bring a lot of long range guns, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could, but that's just not how I built my list. And so, the ghost keels like go into like say the bug matchup for NIDS, right? And you just sit there on points with them, right? And easily fire and fade and keep clearing their guns off objectives, right? You force them to actually have to play you. They have to walk bugs out. They have to get within 12 of these things, get the blanks out of the way. It's really funny. So
it is really funny.
It was a really happy result for that list. I'll be honest with you.
I mean, absolutely, dude. Going first at Dreamhack is insane. Like, that's an awesome result.
I didn't even expect it.
Yeah.
Like they told me like 5 minutes before they were like, "Oh, you top score." I was like,
"No shit, man." Yeah, that's awesome.
Didn't even know that was coming. That's cool.
That is cool. I'm curious, like, as far as like deployment is concerned, like, did you have? It's like here's one thing. As like when I was just trying to like figure out Ret Cadre, playing a couple lists, I was trying to have like a mixed use like crisis unit. So I would like kind of jump, like I would have the uppy downy commander with like a burst cannon, a cyclic, and like 2 meltas, and he'd be the uppy downy guy, and like maybe he would go with the fusion, maybe he would go with the infantry. And I found that to be like as I'm starting the game, like trying to think through like, okay, which commander is going with which shoot, to be like honestly just way too much of a brain load before the game. Like I just needed to be able to put things on the table. So I'm curious, like as far as like the pre-game, like your thought process, did you adjust like who's in reserves based on the matchup, or which commanders with which suit unit? It seemed like your loadouts are pretty, and you mentioned when we were messaging back and forth that they go with who they go with, but just curious about like the pre-game stuff, like kind of how you approached it depending on the matchup.
Sure. So I built the list to be extremely mono-deployable, like in one dimension, right? I wanted to deploy and reserve in the same way every game.
That's smart, yep.
And so, as you can see with the commanders, right? When I built the commanders, they go to the unit that buffs their guns, right?
Yep.
In ways, like you should see the commanders as the output for the unit. The unit really just giving the commander the
buffs,
the buff, right? And because I put the so I deployed, right? I deployed the 3 piranhas, the 2 ghost keels, the 3 stealth units, right?
Yep.
And then I'll deploy the missile team, and I'll deploy the burst cannon team. But really, the burst cannon team, right? It goes up and down every turn, so I'm really not deploying it. I'm just, it sits back there, right?
Yep.
And the flamer teams and the melta teams were always in deep strike. Like it's where they go, because I play the list like I want to carve out a section of the board that my opponent deploys weakly on, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I never wanted my list to be like easily answerable, right? I wanted it to be infinitely flexible with where I'm going to put all of my damage on the board.
Yeah.
Right? Because I felt like the army did better the more I spread somebody out and I didn't let them concentrate.
Sure. I actually put your list on the table a couple times. Not the exact list. I had dropped one crisis unit, but I had the missile pods. I had one burst, one flamer, and then
Yep.
two meltas. But I actually put Farsight with the flamers just to try it out. The
Sure.
meltas I put one with the lethal sustain guy,
Yep.
and then I put one with 4 fusion and the grenade rex. And
Yeah.
I came to the same natural conclusion, which was like, I'm not going to attack a part of the board. Right? I played Cast Knights yesterday on Purge, and I had him take fixed against me. It didn't go my way, but I had the same strategy as you, which was like, okay, there's 6 dogs in this corner of the board. There's 6 dogs in that corner of the board. We're just gonna try to blow up this quadrant.
Yep.
And I ended up losing in part because I had left like a carnivore on 2 and like a stalker on 1, and I really should have deployed, I think, the grenade unit on the board, staged in
Okay.
front of the one expansion objective, so that I could get the full 3 grenades. So then I could 3 grenades, one of them, chip it with like a missile pod unit, and then 2 melta units, kill a different one, and then a ghost keel, a burst cannon, and something else, and a piranha, like take out a fourth one. Um, but yeah, I mean, very interesting because the other thing that I'm curious about is I'm in the Art of War Discord, and I don't know if you are, but Jack Harpster, dude, yeah, Jack Harpster in the chat, he was like, dude, the entire ride home, I was talking to Siegler about like Ret Cadre ideas. He was very impressed with your list and playstyle. Thought it was um, very unique. So I'm curious, like, if you remember anything from that game, like how you approached it. It sounds like deployment is very much the same, but he was bringing. What list did he have?
He had IG. He
He
was
had
running
yeah, guard. He had guard.
5 Living Russ
Okay.
variants.
Wow.
Leontis with a Krieg squad and a platoon command squad,
Sure.
and the 3 armored sentinels and a hellhound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, walk me through that game.
Okay, so we're playing. I actually didn't even want that matchup, right?
Mhm.
I found my list is capable of playing most matchups, right?
Mhm.
But when you play somebody experienced enough who can count your guns to the point where it's like, oh, you only have X amount of fusion that's
Mhm.
reliable. Like, there's a ton of fusion spread throughout the list. But between the ghost keels and the piranhas and every stealth team, blah blah blah. But
Mhm.
what kills a tank in that list is the fusion teams, right? What kills the mutal? What puts Magnus and Angron on check, right?
Mhm.
So on. And so when I approached that game, I really hoped that he would try to play me passively, right? Because I'd played a T-Suns player before that, and he played me passively. And when you let that list just kind of pick how it wants to play the game, you're going to lose every time, right?
100%.
I have way more board. I'm way faster than you. I will win a side of the board and lock you out of it, and it's going to go bad. So when I played Jack, I believe he does go first, and he pushes into the middle. He puts the armor sentinels out there because I can't let these things just live in the board, in the middle of the board game, right? I've got to try to kill them. He positions the Hellhound to respond to middle and my far objective in the corner. So it's my natural on the deployment. And, he kind of like stages and puts out things he's willing to lose to start, is how I put it. He's got all of his Bullgrin basically already on his natural, pushing my Ghost Keel off of it, right? So he's ready to go. And so I took my turn, and I'm like, well, the first thing I got to do in this game, right? I'd say that it doesn't look great. I'm probably going to have to draw him because he's pushing aggressively. I'm not going to be the damage check, right? I'm just going to have to like pick 2 objectives on what's the burn mission? Scorched Earth.
Yep.
I'm going to have to pick 2 objectives on Scorched Earth, basically. I'm going to have to hold these, right, to tie us on primary and keep us close on secondaries as best I can, right? I can do that. And so I aggressively move my piranhas up. I triple battle shock the sentinels until they fail.
Nice.
And because I don't want them to get them back.
Yep.
and I redeploy the burst cannon team to a far flank on my natural, where he's pushing aggressively with Bulgrin and a Lemon Russ. And those are my targets for the turn, right?
Yeah.
I come up a little short on the Sentinels. I leave the last one on like 3 wounds. It's fine, right? It's one Sentinel, and I can play patient, right? Wait till he spends the CP or wait till I battle shock it again, right? Eventually, it's going to battle shock itself. And the burst cannon team gets a little. I'd say it's like right in the upper range of average, right? Like that end of what you might predict is average. I kill 5 of the 6 Volgren out of the unit.
Nice.
Fire and fade them over the missile team. I'm just like, whatever. The missile team's just going to get shelled, right? I had one of these units, burst cannon teams, way more efficient because at any point in time I could go into his back corner and just clean Leontis and squad off, right? Yeah. He had to be aware of the game. Sure. And so, I push it to him, fire and fade the burst cannon team, and he goes to his turn, and he just says, I think I'm just going to full send here.
Hell yeah.
Pushes all his lemons in the middle of the board.
This is
pushes
turn
2. My with 2 of them.
This is turn 2.
Turn 2.
Yeah.
And he measures out his Hellhound, makes the decision. I'm going to go for, I think it's like a 7-inch charge to try to tie up the burst cannon team so they can't at least up down. I mean, they're star sight, so they're going to fall back shoot no matter what. But he could at least put them in a place, right? On the Bulgrin and all of his Lemon Rush shooting basically kind of clear out my pinch point on table 6. Between you have like an angled objective and one that's perpendicular to the long edges of the board, right?
Yep, I'll throw it up on the screen for everybody watching so they can see. Yeah.
Cool. So that middle portion, like, he kills pretty much all but maybe one of my piranhas. The missile team's dead. Bulgrin charge, right? Like, it's all gone. On the far side, on his natural, I charge my Ghost Keel into his Lemon Rust just to basically give it a -1 to hit me, right? And type that so he can't keep up the board. And it's gonna if he chooses to try to go deal with it, right? He's got to go charge Bulgrin off into like no man's land, right? Into like a nowhere position on the board, essentially, to try to kill it. And Bulgrin are horrible into it, so he probably would, right? And so he passes turn to me. And at this point, I'm like, well, I just have to send, right?
Absolutely. Just absolutely send it. Did you rapid in his turn?
No. I rarely rapid with the army.
Really?
Yeah. I don't find that I haven't run into a person who has screened me efficiently enough that I felt the need to rapid a suit unit in to then gain that angle or that shooting distance that I've needed.
Sure.
Right? I've just been able to access what I need to shoot. And so there's really no point to spend the CP. And the army you can spend so much CP. Like, you're feel no painting, like, sparingly. You're almost always 3-inch deep striking, right? Farsight's almost always using a free strat to fire and fade or do whatever, right? Yep. He's always. So, like, I typically try to cash about 4 CP.
Yep.
For my go turn, and then like I'm basically just zeroed out the rest of the game, right? Just.
Sure. The one that I was thinking about for rapid was just because Farsight he goes with the Meltas, right?
Yeah.
So it'd just be to get to activate his +1.
Sure. Yeah. To be honest, I've never seen him need it. but
fair enough.
But it is the need. It's weird how efficient and what he adds to that fusion unit. It's weird how efficient he makes that unit. Honestly, but anyway. So, I have to make decisions at this point on the far side. He started to burn the objective on his natural, right, which is smart. And so I got to make the decision, right? I've either got to put my 10 fusion, which is just the Coldstar fusion team, on that side, thankful the Ghost keeled back, and because he didn't make his charge into the Hellhound on the burst cannons, I need to deploy the burst cannons over there to kill as many of the Bulgrin as possible, essentially, and have the Ghost Keel contest them off from burning it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stop him from doing that. Or I need to put Farsight over there and fire and fade Farsight for free onto the objective.
Mm-hmm.
So I decide the opposite. I put the 10 burst cannons, deciding to fall back the Ghost Keel over there, right?
The 10 meltas.
And yes.
10 meltas, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I put the burst cannons to see the Bullgrin so that I can just kill as much of that unit as possible, hopefully enough that the Ghost Keel contests, right?
Yep.
And I'll kill the one Lemon Russ he has over there, and that should be my corner at that point of the board. And then on my natural, I'm kind of like, well, I just got to basically kill as much as I can over here, and then be willing to lose that eventually, right? Long game. And so I put Farsight over there. He overwatches them, kills one of the fusion suits with the Lemon Russ. So I'm down to 2 fusion suits and Farsight, and we're just gonna let it happen. I dropped the Flamer teams into the middle angles of the board, essentially. So my far table edge, but basically to where the Bullgrin ended up after killing the missile teams and the Piranhas, right? So I dropped those there. I'm going to kill that Bullgrin unit, and I'm hoping what those Flamer teams do is they just convince him to shoot his Lemon Russes at them, right? Because they're not infinitely useful for me in that game, and with Armor of Contempt, they can actually just soak up a lot of Lemon Russ fire, right?
Sure.
So, I'm just hoping that's what they do, right? Something's got to die this turn. It's going to be them if I can help it, right? So I take my turn, and I just kind of pop off, Farsight with the 4 fusion shots, and no guy just domes what remains of that Lemon Russ. It explodes, and to a Hellhound, dinks my Ghost Keel, I don't care. And I'm pretty happy, pretty satisfied with how that ends. Kills his last Bullgrin over there is pretty great. And then the 10 fusion team predictably, with its 3-inch deep strike, just domes the other Lemon Russ full of dead. The Ghost Keel falls back. The burst cannon team kills the Ogren down to 2 and some change, and the Ghost Keel contests him out from the burn.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, he takes his turn. He's down 2 Lemon Russes, so we got 3 to go. He's got the Executioner pushing my natural, the Tank Command regular one in the middle of the board. And so this turn, he basically okay, I need to, get rid of this burst cannon team, and, basically keep pushing me in the middle of the board, right? And so I think his turn goes off. He moves the Executioner up. He kills the Ghost Keel with it. That's sitting on my natural. Because I fire and faded Farsight for free, right? So he wasn't going to be accessible. And the Bullgrin move around my Ghost Keel on his natural. And they're just going to try to charge the fusion team and time up for a turn, right?
Yep.
And then the Tank Commander and the Lemon Russ are just going to shoot the burst cannons, the Flamer suits, basically is what they do. And he positions his Hellhound to try to charge Farsight and team so that they get locked in combat. So takes his turn, kills most of one Flamer team, and all of the burst cannon team sans the commander, which is, I only care about the commander. He's all the output, basically. And his Bullgrin push into the Flamer teams, and he just get overwatched and melted, so it doesn't matter. And things are looking pretty good at this point for me. He didn't do the damage I thought he would. He's got to make some charges. And so he goes for his Hellhound charge. He makes that into Farsight and the guy. And then he goes for his Bullgrin charge, which is admittedly a 4 or 5 incher. I think he needs to roll a 4. And he fails it. Right? And so he doesn't engage the 10 fusions. Oh. And I'm just like, that's pretty great.
Yeah.
That's awesome, actually. He charges his Tank Commander into the Burst Cannon Commander to hold it so it won't go up and down. And passes the turn to me. And so I take the remnants of my Flamer teams. Oh, so then we got to talk about the insanity. So this is where the game just goes a little berserk. Okay. So So the Hellhound gets into melee with Farsight. So this thing's taken 3 wounds from an explosion, and Farsight domes it with his sword. Just full to deads it.
Yeah.
1 round of combat, right?
Well, 2s and 2s, right? Does he get
no,
the +1? It's only range.
It's 3s.
2s and 3s.
2s and 3s.
Gotcha.
2, but he's a 2-up save on a Hellhound.
Yeah.
So it's a fucking 4-up save. He just didn't hit 4s, right?
Oh, God.
And so I do 9 damage to this thing, just drop it. And, I'm like, well, that's cool,
Yeah.
with the Bullgrin failing on the fusion team, the fusion team's just going to go kill another tank, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I take my turn, I have to decide, right? Am I running into the middle of the board? Am I going to kill this last Lone Rust, or am I going to kill this tank commander who's engaged in melee, right? And just he's going to smoke it. I'm going to have to hit this thing on 5s and 4s with the commander, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm just, hope the Melta range and the rerolls, fix whatever I roll for hits, essentially, mm-hmm. right, to kill.
Sure.
And so because he's engaged in melee, he's not going to be able to shoot me with his shoot on death with the tank commander, right? Oh, yeah. Which is a list, admittedly, right? I can't get shot by a demolisher cannon mm-hmm. and a bunch of melee. And so I'm like, well, this is my best chance to do it, because if he takes another turn, he's just going to shoot me in melee with this thing, and he'll shoot the demolisher cannon somewhere I don't want it. It's going to be bad. So I got to rid of this tank. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that his executioner is pretty overlapped onto one of the rectangles, such which that I can move Farsight. He can't shoot me with an Overwatch, but I can shoot at it, essentially. Mm-hmm. Right? Nice. It's like 1 fusion. I think he domed a fusion suit with the Hellhound's melee, mm-hmm. hilariously. But 1 fusion suit and Farsight left on that side, basically, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And so I move all that, I position it up. The middle of the board's kind of irrelevant. I basically got what remains of my Enforcer commanders and the stealth team on my home objective. They clean up the last Armored Sentinel. He doesn't have the CP to regen it. They clean up the last of the Bullgrin, and I set up an Enforcer to basically just charge his Lemon Rust, mm-hmm. so that I'm just going to modify his Bliss skill, make him hit on Dog, mm-hmm. right? And hopefully it pans out for me. And take my turn. Farsight and the Fusion guy, they put the Executioner down to 6. Farsight's gun's pretty relevant in the Fusion team when you think about it.
Sure.
Right?
Rerolling
you're
damage?
just... Yeah. You put a 9.
Rerolling hit, wounds.
Well, it's flat 3, AP3.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
2 shots.
Sure.
You hit on 2s, you wound on 5s, and then you reroll the wound, and you're +1 to wound, and it's AP3 for 3. Pretty good. And the 10-man Fusion team, I don't know how unlikely it is if we actually did the math, but it seemed pretty likely that I was just going to burn that tank commander to death, right? With 10 fusions, 6 of them are going to hit on 5s, reroll 1s, and then wound on 5s, reroll 5s, and then I can get away with rolling 2. All I need is to punch through on 3. I ignore cover. I'm AP5, right? Mm-hmm. I'm within. He's not going to.
AP5 no cover is a drug.
Yeah, and so I kill the tank commander. I put the Lemon Rust down to 6. Charge it with Farsight, and Farsight, I think, delivers 1 through to put it down to 3, right? Mm-hmm. So he's stuck in with me with the Executioner, Farsight, and a Fusion team, and I've got the tank commander dead. He's got 1 Lemon Rust basically left in the middle of the board. Mm-hmm. The remnants of a Bullgrin unit that isn't a big deal for me at this point. And so he takes his turn, and he decides he's going to fall the Executioner back. Because he can't give anything any orders. They're too far forward from Leontis at this point, mm-hmm. even with the 20 inches.
Yep.
So he chooses to follow the Executioner back. He holds the Lemon Rust to shoot it. I think he melts, basically, what remains of one of the Flamer squads, basically. Just it with Meltas and Battlekin, blah, blah, blah. And I think this is bottom of 4, or this is top of 4.
This is top.
Yep. Yeah, and so takes his turn. He doesn't have enough left on the board to really do a lot. So what he's trying to do basically is just stall me from getting a bigger score because we're pretty even at this point in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I take my turn, and I've got to make the decision of like, am I willing to risk the Executioner's Overwatch? Seems likely that he could kill a fusion suit. Plus, just depends on the sixes, right? And so, and he's 10 inches from me, right? So I can just hold still and go for a 9-inch charge and shoot him, right? He's only got 3 wounds left. I'll probably just kill him with Farsight and 1 fusion suit.
Mm-hmm.
So I hold that off. I use the fusion team to kill the last Lemon Russ. I fall the Enforcer that I engaged that Lemon Russ with towards his side of the objective. And I use my Burst Cannon suit that's now freed up to kill the last of that Bullgrin squad, the Burst Cannon commander with the Cyclic.
Mm-hmm.
He kills the last of his remaining Bullgrin squad, essentially. And the Ghost Keel starts to burn. So, kills Lemon Russ. Farsight and team shoots his Executioner to death. I Fire and Fade them towards pushing his home, because at this point it's basically it's Leontis with the command squad and the Krieg's unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I start pushing his home on some off chance that I might be able to burn it, right?
Yeah.
Or I draw an objective where I gotta like storm hostile or something, right? It's the only objective that's eligible to me at this point.
Yep.
And he looks at his turn and he's like, okay, I can go for a 8-inch charge with Leontis, and I can spread the squad out so that I can shoot the plasma gun and the grenade launcher at Farsight's team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he pushes his unit out of the U to try to get the charge to the middle of the board to get I think he was going for area denial if he kills the Enforcer, and try to maybe kill the last of the fusion suit to make Farsight lose the Sunforged team ability, essentially.
Sure.
Just by himself. And so the grenade and the plasma don't pan out. He misses his 8-incher, which I don't know. Guy could have probably used a break at this point, but he didn't get it. Yeah. So and so on my turn 5, I draw Cleanse. I just draw some great secondaries. So I hold 2, I burn middle, I cleanse both. I drop the Burst Cannon suit down, and he just solos Leontis' entire unit by himself.
With the sustain too?
No, I didn't even pop this. He's 18 shots with Burst Cannons, hitting on 2s, rerolling 1s with the gun. And he's AP1 natively because of he's wounding on 2s as well, and he's AP1 natively. So you just kill a lot of Kriegsmen. Go figure. And I've got Farsight well positioned to just charge onto the objective, right? Mm-hmm. And since he didn't make the charge into the Flamer Commander, the Flamer Commander's there to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So just cleared the squad, and we just kind of, once we see how much damage the Burst Cannon guy does, we just shake hands.
Call it.
Let's score the points at this point, right? Sure. There was to roll any more dice. Yeah. So in 5 for me, which was not expected, to be honest with you.
Hell of a win, man. And that is a tough one. To your point, the Demolisher, or the Tank Commander, is just a problem, right? You can't kill him without being inside of 12, and having him tied up is absolutely massive. Because otherwise he just takes out a suit unit by himself, most likely. With the Meltas. I mean, you could go hot with your 4-up invulns, but it's always dicey. 4-ups be 4-ups.
Oh my goodness.
One other thing I am curious about is just your overall pairing strategy. Which matchups were you hoping for? Which ones were you trying to avoid? How important was board choice for you? That sort of stuff.
So I didn't really care much for board choice, right? Unless they were going to put me in something I didn't want to see. Mm-hmm. I didn't care for board choice too much. Uh-huh. And that's just the virtue of my army, basically being half of it's going to be exactly where I want it, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I didn't care so much about the board, but from a pairing perspective, the only thing I really asked them to avoid were armies that were abnormally strong at Overwatch, mm-hmm. right? Those
example, which one? CSM,
all the Balgons, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, she would just she could do nothing, or she could literally remove an entire unit off the board, right?
Yeah.
And things that had enough beef that I'd have to. I could kill it, but it would take me multiple turns to do it. Right. Whereas if they pushed me, I probably, like Jack did. Right. It puts me into a much more do or die game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, where you have a drop turn and it decides the trajectory of the game.
Yeah, exactly. So what I wanted to see, I mean, I built my list to fight all the lists that thought they could be tricky, right? So GSC, Dark Eldar, right? Like all of those factions in particular, and factions like them, do not want to see my list, right? I have so much agency with Overwatch. I deploy so much of my army through. I have a 3-inch deep strike, which means that like they can't make anywhere safe on the board really efficiently, and I largely outtrade them, right? Like split fire for days and just wipe out like 3 acolyte squads in one go with one unit, right?
Yep.
Like the could and 3 Starsight Flamers are just gonna kill 3 acolyte units if I get range and sight, right?
Yeah.
So those were the matchups that I looked to play against. Basically, the people who wanted to try to secret mission or wanted to do something and weren't doing it with beef, like Grey Knights, right? Like Grey Knights with the NDKs are probably horrible for me, right? It's like, do you make wars or not? But that was basically what I was hunting with that list. I also built the list to like handle hordes, right? So I discovered in practice, like I could deal with 100 Crusaders in the list. I could deal with all the Accursed Cultist spams and the CSMs out there. My list was really good at the all-comers lists, right? Like I felt fine into Space Marines and Dark Angels. I felt fine. It's just a strong list, right? The only thing it didn't want to see essentially was somebody who was toughness skewing me, right? And smart enough to pressure me, basically.
Sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Sisters you mentioned, my experience with Sisters, kind of similar to yours, is like, does my opponent leverage the Volgons like well? And if they do,
yes.
That is just the matchup to me. Like, you can pick off the Cascaders and the Immolators and the little 5-mans, and you could hit a couple 4-up invulns, but if those Volgons get to activate into one unit, and then you don't have anything to deal with it other than another Sunforge unit that has to get, in range, like, and they have them staged appropriately, where they have at least, like, Vol and one of them that can overwatch you, then you could you could be in deep shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. I'd probably be trying to draw that matchup, right? Like, I just try to play as passively as I could to force them into me, and just try to win sections of the board that aren't where Vol is, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Castigators are horrible too, right? Because they're just gonna kill whole suit units by themselves.
Yeah, you basically just ignore the Immolators, like, go for the Cascaders and the Vol suits. If you can take those up and still have, like, a critical mass, then you could probably win the game. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my game with Jack. It was a hell of a game. It was really cool to finally get to play the Art of War guys. Like, Jack was such a supremely awesome sport throughout the whole game, right?
That's great.
Which, you think you're going to get that from them, but you're not sure. And when they deliver, it was awesome. Like, I'm so appreciative that I got to do that, and that it was Jack that I got to play.
Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah, Jack seems like a hell of a dude. But by the way, were you on stream at all? Because I know that they were streaming, right? All the Art of War games, like all 8 of them. So you were on one of the tables.
Correct. So my game with Jack was streamed, and my game with, I think it's Kyle with Dark Angels from Midwest Monstars was streamed.
So where would we be able to find those? So the first one is Art of War's channel, right? I know they were like splitting between games. But,
so yeah, so if you do Art of War's whole round and you're hopping between the games, so in which case you can go there if the guy able the full game, so you can watch it.
Wow. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'll put it in the description so everybody can check it out, see you in action. Awesome. I'm definitely curious, so I'm gonna watch that game for sure. And that was the one into Kyle.
Yes. Okay. So it was round 2 into Kyle, and then round 4 into Jack.
Okay. Awesome. Sweet, man. And one other thing I'm curious. Well, there's two other things, but we'll start. Which is, like, if you had to adjust this for singles, like if you're gonna bring this to a singles tournament, like next week, for example, you're playing GW layouts. Yeah, curious what you would change, if anything.
The only real change that the list could do,
Mm-hmm.
that I've mathed out, is what you'd end up doing is you drop the missile team,
Mm-hmm.
you drop the grenade enhancement
Mm-hmm.
off the Coldstar Fusion Commander.
Yep.
And you would take a third Sunforge team and you'd modify the missile enforcer to be a Sunforge enforcer, basically.
Yep.
Right?
Got it.
So that could help you. That could help you to answer when people push you with toughness skew, right?
Mm-hmm.
3 Sunforge teams better than 2.
Yeah,
that's
for sure.
Yeah. I don't think it helps the list universally, but I do think it helps you address the weakness of the list, which is basically skew, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anything else, I don't think the list needs to change. Like, you're very front to back. I had no trouble throughout all my games screening everything, right? The stealth teams, they don't need to infiltrate. That's the ghost kills problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your stealth teams basically just zone your back about board edge, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just find an angle. On GW layouts, it's possible, right? I know other terrain formats it's not really possible, but on GW's layouts, it's possible to just kind of stay on your deployment zone or close to it and just find far angles with stealth teams, right?
Yep.
To whatnot.
Sure. You could basically do it from your home objective if you swing a guy out to the one angle or the top angle or through the middle, and
exactly. Yep. And the piranhas are both screening and early game trading, or you just hold them back, which I did one of my games, right? And you just use them to go do secondaries. You use them to just annoy the crap out of things, right?
Yeah. The battle shock is actually really nice.
Yeah, it's insane. That data sheet is a war crime for 55.
I think so too. When you look at something like a Kronos or a Talos, I think it's Kronos is 55 points. They get a Feel No Pain, and they have a flamer. They're I would say they're slightly better, but don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining, but they are. For 55 points, it is a war crime.
I think it's really that stupid Piranha can kill almost any vehicle in the game on accident.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. You just go, oh, look, I hit you with I got a guide. I hit you with missiles. I hit you with my fusion.
Yeah, my fusion went through. Yeah, you're super dead. Oh, whoops! I did 8 damage with the Melta. Sorry.
Yeah.
It is super funny. Vindicators, dude. I one-shot a Vindicator one time with one. Turn 1 in Monka, I just I went 9. I advanced and went 20, and I was like, oh well, I accidentally have a Pathfinder in the area code because I deployed him on the line. And here you go, it's lethal with the Melta, and I wounded with both Seekers. He didn't save either. Bye-bye.
You just get an opponent who wants to punch you in the face when you're like, yeah, that was 55 points, by the way.
Yeah, you just got scammed so hard.
But the ghost keels give you a ton of flexibility. I just love ghost keels, man. I just,
especially for this list, to your point, forcing people out is exactly what you want. You're okay, either I'm gonna sit here and I'll be annoying and I'll shoot 6 strength 8 AP2 for 3 shots at whatever, and plink a few wounds, and we'll sit here and we'll score primary, and I'll actually score the annoying secondaries if you don't come deal with me. I'll score sabotage, I'll score recover assets. Those typically dead secondaries for me are just fine.
Yeah. The list is very capable of doing that. It ends up having enough trash, which is hilarious. So
yeah. That is one of the areas that Tau excels in. That's for sure. We got pretty efficient trash.
For sure. So yeah, what was the question again?
What was that? Yeah.
Oh, single.
Yeah, you got to it. Yeah, so it would the final list. What would that be? So you mentioned you drop the missile pod unit and the.
I'm convinced. I'm saying it's an option to do.
Gotcha. Yep.
Honestly, I probably wouldn't change it.
Yeah. Roll with it.
the list is extremely flexible, right? By virtue of just deep striking half the army.
Yeah.
So it answers. It preys on balance lists. It preys on horde lists, and it can play out of its bad matchups. Right? It has the ability of playing against the toughness skews when you need it to.
Sure.
So yeah, I don't think I'd change it. I think it's just a solid, good approach to the list. Like and to be fair, in Ret Cadre, there isn't a lot that you could change, right? Like, what are you going to do? Riptides? Like, that's not fixing any of your issues, right? That's just Riptides.
That is where I started, because it was like a comfortability thing, right? After playing Kion for a year and then Monka for like 6 months, it's just like it was the comfortability of 2 Riptides. I was even running Hammerheads. I ran the 2 Riptides, 2 Hammerheads, then I had like the 3, I had the Uppy Downy unit, 1 Fire Knife, 1 Sunforge. But to your point, like at that point, just like play Monka, like play Kion. Like they have better support for those type of units. And yeah, Riptides just don't really benefit from Ret Cadre at all, because you just kind of want to sit them back. Like in the Strength 8 versus Strength 9 breakpoint is like whatever. Whereas like lethal hits is a big deal and sustain 2 is a massive deal for a unit like that. The other question I had, go ahead. You're gonna say something?
I was gonna say, like, I've seen a version of this, and I didn't personally like it, but it basically replaced the infantry clearing with burst cannons on the Riptides.
Okay.
I guess you could try. I wouldn't do it.
But again, it's like you kind of run into the same issue where it's like you really, I mean, the Riptides are good to just push stuff, but again, if you're fighting a gun line, right? It's not like a ghost skill. Like they just shoot you back. Like
I would also argue that the suit units, in a unique way, can be more durable than the Riptide, just because your wound blocks, right?
Yeah.
4 wound block, 2 5 wound blocks, and then some 8 wound commander, right? And so things like Meltas and las cannons, while certainly efficient into you, it's like having those old 9th edition breakpoints on your characters that can only take so much damage in a phase. It's like the amount of times that I've had a suit unit tank, a whole bunch of anti-tank that you wouldn't expect it to, has been pretty surprising, right? Like sometimes people just don't roll a good damage roll, right? And you have 5 wounds on some of these models, right? So okay,
D6 plus 2. It's like, okay, like you better roll a 3 up, because if you don't, I'm about to eat, or a 4 up, right? I'm about to eat 2 las cannons, and I have 1 suit in the commander, which guess what? That's like basically just as good as the 2 extra suits. Like it's not even a huge deal.
The Enforcer's Armor Contempt, like it gets your 3 up to 5s in most cases, right? Like, so you can be abnormally durable, right? I wouldn't say like count on it. I just saying something that can happen does exist.
Sure. So. And like with the 6 up Feel No Pain can make things really, really weird.
Yep. For sure.
The other question I had was around, and I messaged you about this, you gave me your answer, but for the audience, is around Bring It Down, Assassinate. So I'm curious, like, what's your thought process about it? That's the one thing that's held me back as a Tau player from putting a list like this on the board is, man, is the days of like running the in Kaoyan, giving up like 38 on Bring It Down and 20 on Assassinate, and just having everyone be like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to take that into you. Because that's your army.
So, I feel that the higher you go up in the game's like skill brackets, the worse it is to give your opponent the choice of how much you're going to score on secondaries. I think that's just like the universal rule. Does the list give out max, Bring It Down, and Assassinate? Absolutely. But when you're putting it in your opponent's hands as to whether or not you're going to score those points in the first place, it's horrible, right? If somebody were to take that against me, and Jack did debate that, if somebody were to take that against me, in most cases where I feel advantaged or even in the matchup, I think it's going to go enormously poor for them, right? I think they're going to, they're going to try to play me cagey, or they're going to be so balanced, they're going to push onto objectives, and I'm going to hit them the first turn with the absolute minimum that I need to commit to clear them off and score my secondaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to try to hit me back, and they can come up short all the time. I've seen it happen a million times, right?
Mm-hmm.
You leave the command alive. The suit units, like, you have to kill 14 wounds worth of suits,
Mm-hmm.
under armor in certain cases, right, and cover, to score 2 bring it down points, right?
Yeah.
So, do you do it? I don't know, you know? But even if you do, like, you know, I say the list is pretty consistent at putting up 8 to 10 secondary points every round, right? You can give your opponent less than that every round and still score those points, right? So they're just net negativing against you almost every turn, and they still have to beat you out on primary, which this list is an absolute bully on, right?
Yeah, just because Fire and Fade and 3-inch exists.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the ghost kills are just hyper inefficient to try to score bring it down points against, right? So, you know, that's where I think it's the better the player you play, the worse that is an option in my eyes, right? And you see that across multiple game systems, right? That's not just like 40K's problem. That's like, you know, you look at Magic cards that people are like, well, that's an insane card, but then you read the card and you're like, but it's your opponent's decision point on whether or not that effect takes place, as an example.
Gotcha.
There's lots of games, lots of things where that exists. It's always inferior at higher levels of the game. So that's kind of where I stand on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did anyone take it against you in the tournament?
No.
Wow.
Was the closest to trying it, and to be honest, I was going to be happy if he did.
Yeah.
Because if he takes it, then he forces me to play passive, and I only projected a draw for that game in the first place. So, you know, he was basically just letting me play how I wanted to play.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let that scare you, man. Like,
word. I played CK, and yeah, like I said, I asked him to take Bring It Down Assassinate. I went second on Purge, and man, it just didn't go my way. That one was kind of rough.
Curse the Foe is just a bad mission. That and Ritual. Those are probably my favorite to play.
Sure.
Just because of your missions interact with them, and or you know, just the fact that you can't lock somebody out of primary on them either, right? Like,
yeah, at a minimum, everybody's getting 8s every turn. Like,
yeah,
and it's going to come down to secondary scoring. And at that point, yeah.
And teams trying to push differential, those are horrible. In singles, it's fine, right? Like, you have an abnormally close game, but it's not going to actually be close, right?
Sure.
So,
yeah, very drawish. And so you played Jack's guard. What were your other matchups that you had?
Okay, so first round I played CSM.
Okay. Was that AC/DC?
Yeah, it was AC/DC. It was Renegade Raiders.
Yep.
And I found that, you know, like I thought, between the Burst Cannon team and any other suit unit, I basically pick an AC/DC up right off the board.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
So, and I noticed with Chaos lists, like, the matchup gets infinitely better for me the less armor they bring, right? This guy brought as minimalist armor as possible, so he had 2 Predators in total, right?
Yeah.
And so I just, you know, because he was so into his AC/DC skew and Legionnaires coming out of Rhinos and whatnot, right? And I think he had some Rubrics, right?
Sure.
And that.
Yep.
And so, like, one fusion team, I just split fire and gambled and killed both. Both Predators, right? I just put the 1 and the 6 in the other, like,
yeah,
they're good. So
nasty.
I got both of those, and then the game was pretty textbook after that. Basically no gun response to me, and I'm just an army that loves to overwatch you, and
also doesn't care if you blood surge into you blood surge into flamers. Okay, cool. I'm still blowing you off the face of the planet.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. So that was game 1, and then game 2 was into Dark Angels with Kyle. That was on stream. we were playing the Alpha Omega
Ugh.
mission.
That's actually great for Ret Cadre, huh? Because you could just
Yeah,
you don't really give a shit.
I owned that Omega objective or whatever the final objective.
Yeah.
I was on it the whole game.
Sure.
And I was basically going to draw him, and I purposely sandbagged my primary into him.
Yeah.
To stop him from secret missioning.
Smart.
So,
which secret mission were you concerned about? Was it the Battle Line one? Or the Control the Home?
Battle Line was a possibility, and it was probably the Battle Line one, honestly. It was either that or I guess that was the only one, because I killed his Warlord. I killed Azrael. So yeah. I think Azrael's his Warlord. I doubt it was biologist or whatever.
Yeah, it makes the most sense, because he also gives like the 4-up invuln, so like it's a decently tanky-ish unit. Yeah, that would make sense.
I wanted to basically put him into a point on that board where like he didn't have an option to secret mission me, and I knew that I was going to deny him somewhere between 15 and 23 primary points. Right? Yeah. Just how the board shook out and positioned, I kind of recognized that early game. That's what I was looking for. And so that's how it shook out. I basically kind of just kept him off of... I got lucky. I wouldn't say lucky. I just had a Ghost Keel shoot the what's his name? The combi weapon. Combi weapon.
Yep.
He was just within 22 of the Ghost Keel, and so I moved the Ghost Keel up, and I killed his combi weapon lieutenant.
That's huge.
It was 8-pointer, so he didn't score 8.
Oh.
And then, I killed everything off and engaged everything that he was going to try to get onto the 15 point at the end of the game objective.
Yep.
And like, Deathwing Knights are good in suits, but they're not.
Yeah, they're not going to solo a suit unit on average, right?
Right. Yeah.
They're going to be stuck.
They're not going to kill the suit unit through the commander, right? Like, commander will still be there probably. Yep. And 100%. So, I managed to tie him up and keep him off of 23 primary points. So, the game worked really well.
Was that a matchup you were just like, cool, yeah, I'm fine taking this, or?
I projected small win into it.
Okay.
I got better. So
yeah, hell yeah.
And so then, I play third round. I think we got the pair down, and I end up playing against T-Suns. And this is not what I wanted necessarily, because it's Magnus and triple Vortex Beasts.
Ugh.
And then a bunch of Infernal Masters and Rubrics, basically.
Okay, that sounds pretty gnarly.
Yeah, but I could tell my opponent was pretty afraid of me based on how he deployed.
That's an interesting thing about Ret Cadre is people, and a benefit to our earlier point in the conversation is like, people, like, we have all the flexibility, right? There is not a familiar play pattern. People don't play into high-level Ret Cadre players a lot, because high-level Ret Cadre players, by and large, there aren't a ton of them. You know what I mean? So it makes sense, but seeing someone, after playing Grey Knights a bunch, there's a bunch of Grey Knights in my meta, seeing someone screen 3-inch turn 1 just, like, makes me so happy inside. I'm just like, yes, actually, I'm not going to, put my most valuable unit in your backfield turn 1, but this is funny, at least. This is entertaining.
I mean, people freak out, because the Starsight team, when I go second, can inch turn 1, right?
I mean, if you're guard, you better be screening that, because Leontis, man, that Leontis unit, if you put the sustain to, you could just solo the whole thing.
You could just talk people out of screen. Like, I mean, they ask you, like, do you think I can hide? I'm like, no. I don't think, I think what you would have to do to make sure that I can't get an angle to something you don't want me to shoot is next to impossible.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
I enchant to it, but I guarantee that when you look at the score at the top of 3 or bottom of 3, you're going to be like, the game's already over. Because I chose not to play the game. I chose to try to deny you some,
Yeah, exactly. At that point, then you just pick apart at the edges, and then you're still at full strength. They just have their damage dealers, and now it's like the decision point of like, do I score points and die immediately, or do I kill stuff and try to salvage the game on turn 5 points wise? And like both are bad decisions.
Yep. Yep. So I played T-Suns. He played passively. He kept a Vortex Beast in reserve, which walk on reserve against this army is the worst strategy you could ever do.
Yeah.
Like, because the army just deploys on the side of the board.
Exactly.
Naturally, right? Yep. So, like, I just carve out these, like, tiny... I guess you can put it in your deployment zone sections of the board, right? And that's where they go.
Sure.
So, into T-Suns, most notably, he basically just couldn't screen me, and since he's running rubrics, I just found the weak side for him, and I dropped Flamer teams. He overwatched, killed the Flamer team down to the commander, and then that commander picked up the rubric squad by himself, and then the other Flamer killed the entire rubric team, and my Ghost Keel is like, just doesn't care about Vortex Beasts, right?
Yeah.
So
it's like, cool, you've got a railgun shot, sweet, you can kill me in 3 turns.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna charge me. Okay, cool. Like,
whatever.
Do that.
Oh, that's cute. You did D3 Mortals. Oh, okay. Anyways, I'm on 9.
Right. So yeah, I was just basically, I confined him to like at his best moment a third of the board, right? And I own the rest of the board, and I got to freely, just score secondaries, score primary. It was, it was just and then I played Jack round 4. We know how that goes.
Yep. And
final round, I get Drukhari, and Drukhari is one of my main armies, and on top of it, I built my army to beat it.
Yep.
But I got to play him on the ritual, and he tries to secondary me with Unbroken Wall.
Okay. Yeah, which is unstoppable.
Which is I stopped it.
Oh, he went second?
Barely. I went second, and I barely stopped that. But yeah, and basically, he just had this line of objectives and like a far corner of the board, and I was like, all right, so you got 4 there, and I got to keep you off of 2 of them. And I just, between pseudo C and finally getting line onto all these units he left back there, I
got the job.
I held it. Yep.
And it was just a super cagey game basically until that point, I imagine.
Yeah, I probably could have pushed him more aggressively, but it's round 5, and I felt like we had already kind of played the finals.
Yeah.
Right?
Fair.
I was so burnt out, but he was a great guy. I think he knew it wasn't a good matchup for him, and playing Dark Eldar, it's be my nightmare to play against my own Ret Cadre list, frankly.
Sure.
Like, so many Flamers, every gun in that army is lethal to transports almost, right?
Yep.
So, yep.
Yeah.
And trying to Ghost Keel is just like, the level of commitment the Dark Eldar player has to put into killing that Ghost Keel is so bad for them,
it's not
right?
worth your time. Yeah, 100%.
Anyway, that was my round 5. Yeah, it was a heck of an event, honestly.
Absolutely, man. Hell of a result. And I'm curious, like, do you see yourself continuing to play Ret Cadre for the, after this? Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, I bought the list. I own all the models myself now. I got, which is, I don't know about you, but I end up, buying, massive project lots, right?
Sure.
And then burning out on the project before I ever get to play it. But just see it through, so,
yeah. Hell yeah, man. Yeah, that's why I only have, I do have a Custodes army, technically, but I just have Tau, and it makes life easy. Every time a GT comes around, usually I have to, build and paint, 2 new units, and at this point I have, I don't have 18 suits, but built and painted, but I think I have, 12. So, a commander or 2 and a couple suits, so, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I've got a GT lister due this upcoming Tuesday.
Cool.
Yeah.
You gonna go Monka Comfort Zone?
Probably not. I think I am gonna run Retaliation.
Cool.
Because the issue, if I did go Monka, I'd bring the Tiger Shark, or Kion, I'd bring the Tiger Shark, because of layout 1 is a problem for me.
Yeah.
Like layout 1 is just a massive issue, and the way we're running the GT is like there's 3 potential layouts um, for each day, but it's random. So it's layout 1 to 6 day 1, 1 to 4 day 2. So like if I get unlucky and I pull layout 1, let's just say I get it the average amount of times twice, and I get into some pressure list, like dealing with that um, staging ruin is just gross, and like Ret Cadre has the answer, you know. Um, and the Tiger Shark has the answer, but like, do I really want to bring the Tiger Shark? Not really, to be honest with you. Um, but yeah, so
You gonna break?
the
Yeah.
Towner, I could scout at 6, just tap that ruin, and just blow everything off the face of the planet.
It'd be it's so good that but nobody plays it.
Yeah, it's true. I wonder why.
You
Yeah,
know.
dude, it's because of the split fire. Sadly, like you're just gonna accept you're gonna hit on 4s and split fire into everything, and then you bring Shadow Stone to get the real ones to hit. And
Yep.
I don't own one, but I have a buddy who did it on a stream one time. Man, just absolute madman.
The other thing that I guess I liked about Ret Cadre over other Tau detachments too
Hmm.
was that I get a rule for the whole game.
Yeah, 100%. That's
Uh,
to your point, right? Like, here's the other weakness of Monka, which I talked to the last guy I talked to. He was like 4th at LGT, and he mentioned it, and he's so right. Is like Pry Nexus favors like playing cagier if you can,
yep.
and you just have like an extra bonus to doing that if you're playing Monka. Like you could just, all right, well, I'll give you one turn of having your rule, like turn 3. You get one turn of it, and I hope you pop off, because if not, like all of the units in your list that want to benefit from it, like Riptides, we just won't, and
Yep.
then you're playing not a great army. Like Strength 8 Riptides, like they could do well, but you're wounding on 5s. You never know what could
Yep.
happen. Like probably not great things, So yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah. And I found like you said, I think you already said it was just like whenever they asked me about my mirror matchup, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I did math on like the ions on the Tiger Shark, right? What that looked like for me, how
Uh-huh.
efficient he a suit unit, right, or 2, and
Yep.
then I looked at like how I could approach the game. And I'm like, if I just choose not to really play the game for the first 2 or 3 turns of it, he's just lost,
Yeah,
right?
it's one of two options, right? Either he shoves everything in the middle of the board, and you're like, okay, cool, like I'm gonna blow you off the face of the planet,
Yep.
and fire and fade a unit back, so you're gonna get to kill less than I killed. Yeah, or you just SOL. Like we're both gonna score. It's gonna be like a 12-8, and I'm not gonna have to do anything about it. Like probably in your favor because you have better late game scoring.
Exactly. Yeah, and so I listed it as kind of coin flippy with the Tiger Shark because it kind of mattered whether or not I went first or second,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
If I got to go second, then I could force him to put the stupid Tiger Shark on the board, and then I could just try to fusion it off,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because I was pretty sure that like between the fusion teams, I was just gonna annihilate that thing.
Yeah.
So what's his toughness? Is it
T11.
T10?
It's T11.
T11. Okay,
18
gotta
wounds.
learn it off.
5 up invul and -1 damage. So like if he stacks everything,
He can
it's
make.
got
He
a
might.
shot. He could spike 5s. And if
He
he
could.
spikes 5s, he spikes 5s.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why I called it coin flip. So.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're right on the money.
But yeah, I don't know the break points too that the +1 strength gives you within 12 on those battle suits is pretty impressive. Like you
Yeah.
you don't even think about it on like the stealth teams,
Mm-hmm.
and then you see what the stealth teams do, and you're like, that felt pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty decent.
Stealth do something before, but here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't own any of the actual fusions because I got them in a lot, and they're all burst cannons. But
Oh,
every time I talk to people, they're just like, yeah, like the fusion, I love having that just like scam people left and right, just like
yep,
randomly. It'll just, oh yeah, like it's AP5, like, sorry, your whatever, your tank that was on 4 or 5 is now dead.
yep. That and I mean, it's still like eight burst cannon shots too. Like
Yeah.
it's um So yeah, I don't know. Maybe the Kroot detachment. Like I owned this just massive Kroot army, right? For with all the new,
Yeah.
because nobody wanted to. So I just found like amazing deals on, you know, 18 Rampagers and all the
No
Kroot talk
shit. Yeah.
stuff, right? Yeah, I picked it up and I was super excited to play it because prior to the recursion changes and the stratagem changes, the army was fieldable,
Oh,
right? And it
100%.
4-1 or X-1 type army, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, now it's dead. Like
Sure.
it's just dead.
It
But
is dead.
I'm someday it'll be good again.
I
I'll be
think
looking for.
I think there will be a day in the near future where you'll at least have reasons to put them on the table. Maybe not in the crew
Sure.
attachment, but I'm hopeful that like next Thursday they get some real changes. I've talked about it a bunch on the channel with like previous people, and yeah, I think it'd be cool to have like a unit like a Crutox Rampager to be able to rapid and like heroic, that sort of stuff. Just like having a new element to the army that you can use that doesn't exist already. Um, yeah, even if it's not like super strong at what it does, just the fact that it has like it is threatening, right? Can
Yep.
be, just like Bulgrin and Guard, right? Because they have that one melee unit that's tanky, it like really helps out their game plan, and I don't know. It'd be fun to at least mess around with it in like Retaliation or Makai, whatever, any of the Tau Empire, detachments.
For sure. 100%. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I play beyond Kroot and Retaliation Cadre for Tau or not.
Hmm.
But it's just because I don't like I said, I don't like my opponent having any agency
Mm-hmm.
in the game, right?
Yeah,
And I
fair.
feel like play against Kalyan, like your opponent has agency in terms of like, well, it's not always the correct move, but sometimes they just push the shit out of you, right? And you're just like,
100%.
well,
Well, that is honestly
uh,
it is the correct move, right? Like to be honest
yeah,
with you, it's like if you have an army that can push, you just push early, and especially if they have like a Tiger Shark, right? Then it's just like, all right, well, we're just shoving on site, and like we're gonna figure out how this game's going immediately.
yeah. I mean, for sure that I don't know. We'll see. Uh, I have considered trying to put Shadow Sun in the list, but I just don't think there's 100 points that she fits in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trades for anything good. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you experimented with that at all.
I I played Shadow Sun not a lot in Retaliation. When I started playing Retaliation a little bit, I had her in there when I was running like the Riptides and the Hammerheads. But I think to your point, like it's kind of a weird unit where it's not like a ghost skill, right? It's like not really a lone up that you want to be pushing up the board really well. Like
Right.
it always kind of feels bad to lose her, um, and so it's like one of those units that I I feel like I haven't figured out how to play her correctly because I don't know how to like sacrifice her correctly, if that makes sense. Like I don't know when the
Sure.
point is that it's like, okay, I need to get some value out of her because her being in my backline and like giving reroll ones to like 2 units a turn, like that's cute, but at the same time it's not like doesn't feel like I would rather have a unit that's going out there and scoring me secondaries or move blocking or tagging some shit because that's kind of like in your list kind of what you need, like taking away like essentially 2 of those units that do that, like score
Right.
secondaries consistently, like is a big deal because of the critical mass of suits you got.
All the reroll ones, really, too, right?
Yeah,
Like at best for the list, she's just basically a placeable reroll ones or a for
mm-hmm.
like maybe lucky,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Well,
And
after that, probably.
exactly, and you only have really the 4 units that give a shit, and so 3 of them are getting guided by stealth teams. So it's literally just like she's babysitting one suit unit.
Yeah, you just want to live the dream where like she melted something by herself
Yeah,
off the board.
yeah. Strength 11 is sick. You're like, okay, sick. Like I'm winning something on threes, and I have my own reroll one Zora, but she's not strong enough where, or she is um she doesn't like have like her weapons don't really have like a real roll. You know what I mean? Like it's like two anti tank shots, 2 anti infantry or 2 anti elite shots, and 5 anti infantry shots, which I think I learned after like trying to do like the split loadouts is like the suit units are way better when they have a very specific role.
Yep.
They
The
delete X from the board. They're not trying to be all purpose. Like that's why you have 2 of each, or one missile pod, 2 star scythe, and 3 or 2 3 star scythe, 2 meltas, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Missile Pod team too. I think I like it because it places on the board, and I need something just with how units divide and points split.
Yeah.
That I need they be there, and they seem like the most logical for that. It's also about the only range 30 thing in the army.
Yeah.
But I love that they reroll hits.
It's very nice.
They don't need guide
Yeah.
necessarily. Um, and I guess the missiles do get to a strength 8 breakpoint, which is nice. So yeah,
it's kind of tough because of the -1 damage in the game, right? But you have
yeah,
a burst cannon unit for those units. So you have that answer. Like I think the missile pods are at their best, and like here's another example: is the plasma. Honestly, so they're actually our most efficient unit. I math hammered this, but with sustain 2, rerolling 1s to wound into like the paladin bricks, the Grey Knight paladin bricks.
sure.
They'll actually kill like 5 of them, whereas like the burst cannons will kill 2 or 3. Like a breacher unit will kill 2 or 3. The plasmas
Sure.
with the sustain 2. I mean, if that's ever an issue, but like the 10-man marine or the 10-man marine bricks with the characters, right? Like I know Blood Angels is the Death Company are going away, but plasmas into the -1 damage unit are really good. So they fit their own um, specific role. It's just very like meta dependent. I think is like, are you seeing a lot of the 10-man Grey Knights? Are you seeing a lot of like 11-man Marine units? Stuff like that.
Plasma is 18, right?
It's 18.
Yep.
It is. But Strength 9 AP4 for 3 is with like sustained 1 with full hit rerolls.
Yeah,
Or sustained 2 into some nasty shit.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they're the only way you can abuse that. I didn't
100%.
really plasma team, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Maybe I could try the missile team as in place of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally just a net neutral change,
Uh-huh.
right? It change the commander's loadout, change their loadout.
Yeah, especially because like the burst cannons kind of like solve the issue of like the missile pod weakness, and it kind of gives you a different element, I think, with the lack of like Riptides, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah, could be worth trying out.
Cool. Yeah. Interesting. So, what are you kind of wish listing for Tau wise when they change?
Yeah, so I think like I'm trying to be realistic. I think like crew changes make sense. I would just say like if it sounds like Riptides will probably go up because to Lewis's point, who I talked with last week, like there are basically 3 ofs in every list other than like yours. Like every Kion list runs 3, every Maka list runs 3. That being said, I think they are like a linchpin unit to those armies, like similar to the Bulgrins. For Tau, something you could just put on an objective and be like, all right, screw you. Like you could put a whole tank commander into me, and I could be on 8 at the end of it. It's just very coin flippy. So to compensate for that, it would either be like some micro adjustments to the suits. Honestly, like I think the Sunforge team is okay. Like I don't think they're busted. I think they're pretty good, but for what
Yeah.
they bring to the table, Strength 9 rerolling wounds. Again, it's just not like super consistent for a dedicated anti-tank unit, especially if you're going after tanks that have access to smoke. Like someone
Sure.
popping smoke, it'll get really rough quickly, even rerolling ones. So I would just say like micro adjustments to the suit units. I think the fire knives are a little overcosted because you kind of look at the profiles and like strength 7 AP1 for 2 like is kind of mid. Like AP1 is okay, and then 2 damage is again like just okay. So something changing there, and then I would also say the Ghost Keel, to be honest. Like I know they're really good. They're probably just fine where they're at. But again, if you're gonna change the Riptide, like I think some already usable units could go down a few points.
Sure.
But those are the ones that come to mind. Like I think carnivores make a lot of sense. Like literally going to like 60 or 65 just to get access to sticky. Because like you look at other armies, that have like a unit that stickies that has absolutely no defense and negligible offense, and they're 55 points, or 50 points. Granted, they're OC2, but like, when are you actually using the OC2? You know what I mean? Like, you just sticky something and die.
Right.
So those things, I'm trying to think of like what else. I mean, there's like some other dumb shit that just like never gets seen. Like, I think it would be cool for the Lone Spear to be like a real character you could play with. He's the lone
That
up
was
guy. who's got like a
Yeah.
decent gun, like a D6 blast gun, and he fire and fades. Like I think if he was not 100 points, or I think he's 100 or 90. Like if he was like 70 or 75, like maybe that's too undercosted, but it would be cool to see him get to a level where he could make sense in something that's not the crit detachment.
He only root accuracy, right? That's his whole spiel. Whatever he hits, he
Reroll
gives you
hits. Yeah,
yeah
but just
reroll.
having a lone op that has fire and fade is kind of sick. And he can be like a caddy for enhancements. So like some enhancements, like the Scout 6 one in Monka, he can carry that one, which would be nice to be able to put it on him instead of like an ethereal, for example, because that's just basically 75 dead points. I played it in this RTT last weekend, and I had 8 rounds in a row where I didn't roll a 4-up. I was just like, to get the CP, it's like this is a waste of my fucking time. It was just like pissing me off. Like it was just tilting me a little bit. Like whatever. Not you know what I mean? Like it was just like actively. Like I wasn't counting on it or anything, but I was like, this is actually comical. Um, what else? Man, I was just thinking about another unit. Um,
I can see strikes,
yeah,
right?
sure.
Not like I mean, breachers are breachers. They're probably where they need to be. I don't know, maybe not. I don't play them, so I won't weigh in on them too much. But
They're nasty. They're
you
nasty.
haven't seen strike. I haven't seen strikes like played seriously in a
Mhm.
realistic while,
Yeah,
right?
agreed.
Ever.
Yeah, their buff is nothing. Like it rarely ever matters. Like the -1 to hit thing. Like it's cute, but like when does it ever come up? -1 to wound is nice, but yeah, I think to your point, they could stand to go down 5 or 10 points. Oh, I do have like this is probably a hot take. Well, it's not a hot take. I think it's just like generically good, but I want them to change that enhancement, the redeploy enhancement. Give us a Vectora, baby. Give me a Vectora. I know that probably be way too busted, but I'm still gonna ask for it,
What would carry the Vectora?
dude. The any commander that you just like. All right, I'm gonna
Oh,
3-inch in all of your units.
your side chip for
Yeah,
that?
yeah, the one that
Or
does nothing. Yeah, the one that doesn't do anything.
yeah, every time I see that thing, it upsets me
Yeah, it's
more
just
and
like,
more.
guys, why can't we just, I don't know. Like it takes no effort to just change it to something else. Like just make it do anything.
Power aren't allowed to have nice things, I guess, dude.
You know,
We
it's funny.
yeah,
There's like other armies. Sometimes like thankfully, I'm just glad we got like one iteration of free strat. Like thank God. Like after
yeah,
getting abused by free strats from like Marines for the first year of the edition, and like that Hive Tyrant who could like free strat the same, like he could 5-up Feel No Pain 2 things basically, and
yeah.
like do it not every battle round, every player turn. I'm just like, guys, this is insane. Like it controlled the game like completely. It was like, how many like do you have access to free strats? Because you just get to do 5 more strats than everybody else. Um, it was just gross. So
I mean, Farsight is a godsend. The more I've
huge.
played that model, the more I've been like, I love this dude.
Yeah.
Like
The
he's
CP
act
breakpoint. The
yeah,
CP breakpoint is massive. Having like some guy who can like chip something for an extra 3-6 wounds, like is really important. Um, I was running with the Flamer unit. I got charged by the Triumph and handed him 18 wounds in Overwatch, and I was just like, just for the Flamers, I was just like, oh god, this is gross. And then just like fell back onto his home and just killed the Triumph after that while he's using the Miracle Dice. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is disgusting.
I mean, the amount of times in the tournament that I was able to engineer, like into Dark Angels for specifically, right? Armor Contempt is such a like annoying ability on those Terminators, right?
Yeah,
Because you're trying to invuln, so you actually do real damage to them,
yeah. Otherwise, they're
right?
just on 3-ups.
Mikey,
Yeah.
and I I would just leave a Flamer unit within 6 of them and just be like,
Go
"How's AP
ahead.
two?
Yeah,
Yeah, two sound to you?
yeah.
Oh,
You
that
can't,
looks. Have a look. Pack
can't.
your units now."
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, you can't armor contempt in my turn, buddy.
yeah.
Like,
Oh my.
just don't flinch.
I had a lot of people like just when I tell them what the AP on those burst cannons could be, and they just be like, "What do you mean it's AP two?" Well, here's the thing, man. My army's allowed to have good rules too. All right.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah,
And
man.
Starsight, the best probably suit unit in the army. So
It definitely
anyway,
is. They probably, if you bring down the Fire Knives and the Sunforge down 5 or 10 points, we could keep the Star Size where they're at.
I think we just need to give Sunforge the full Eradicator treatment. Let me reroll
Yeah.
hit. No, keep him at
Dude,
150.
you know how
I
it would be
they
a
could go to
riot in the streets if they did that.
yeah.
Every Tau hater would come out of the woodwork. Tower's so busted. I don't care if they have a 47% win rate. Their rules are bullshit. Like I just played this Assasinate player. He beat me,
Sure.
and he's only beaten me, right? Because I played him in Kalyan, and like
Yeah.
Assassinates in Kalyan was just brutal. And he's
Sure.
still talking shit to me, and he's only ever beat my ass. I'm like, dude, what's going on right now? Like, you need to calm down. Your Tau hate is like way too far. Like, you're literally beating me, and you're still pissed off about my rules. I don't get it.
It's so fun being on the other side of Tau pretty much the entirety of my 40k career to play Tau and
Yeah.
be like, nice. This is what it feels like
Yeah.
to be the one that's most hated irrationally on the table. And it works to your, especially with my list. Like, people are so afraid of your army that they just don't play smart, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't. They hear the rules. They're just like, they hear the 3-inch, the fire and fade, the AP5, and they're just like shaking in their boots.
Yep. So, yeah. I mean, Tau's been a blast.
Fuck yeah.
But I'm snowflake that I'm hoping that people will just hate Tau enough and they stop playing them, and then I can be the only one.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a huge advantage, dude. That's what it was like playing Kalyan in the Index. No one was playing around me at all. Dude, like it was at like a 38% win rate for like 3 months at the beginning of the edition, and yeah, there's a huge advantage to playing an army that not a lot of good players play, and so people aren't getting good reps into it, and then they get surprised by like what it looks like to maximize the rules.
Yep. Maybe someday I'll use that really horrible stratagem in Ret Cadre. The charge.
The charge one.
Take a rock and take mortals on 6s or something like that.
Dude,
Grab inhibitor.
Yeah, there's a game that Siegler was on in the War Room, because I watch all the Tau ones, and I think John Lennon had like area denial and like extend battle lines, and basically he was like an inch away from it happening. Oh, you know what it was? I think that was actually Kalyan. But anyways, he had a different one where he had a different game where he used that strat and it like denied like 8 points or something crazy like that. Like held a point, like just the battle shock aspect of it alone. It wasn't immortals, but there's a lot of like just like the Kalyan one, like there's a lot of secondary denial potential there, right? For like Secure No Man's Land, Storm Hostile, Extend, like all that trash. But yeah, like it's just hard to find the CP for it. So you just need to be at a point where you're just like, well, I got fuck it levels of CP, so why not? Like, just take a gamble for fun.
Yeah, we just need more CP generation in the army. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Then I can use all the strats.
Yeah, that would turbocharge the whole list. Like, give me an Azrael. Give me a fucking Azrael.
I mean, Nid's got Vectora and free CP on Warlord.
Yeah. Some nasty shit.
Why not Farsight?
Yeah. For sure. I'm also curious about what you think of Vespid, because that was one edit that I made to your list. Was I think I put in like Pathfinders and Vespid and took out one of the teams. It was like Darkstrider, Pathfinders, Vespid, and then I dropped like one Star Scythe unit, I think.
Sure. Yeah, you probably just dropped one of the Flamers for sure.
Yep.
I don't see what Vespid add to my army.
Yeah, it's fair.
Vespid can be great. It's the same way with a lot of Imperial Guard players are so excited about those Aquilans. But I'm kind of like, were you not just doing that with Catechins anyway?
Well,
right?
No, well, so with the Aquilans, you can get really cute. Like, think about like a GSC player, for example, where they're just like stringing. I mean, it's not 20, it's only 10, but like, that's fucking annoying. Stringing 10 guys 3-inch like across an army that's not Tau that doesn't fly, like that's really powerful. Like you're jailed, and like you can do basically nothing about it. Like, or else you just screen the midboard in the open in front of a gun line.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they were doing that with Catechins anyway.
That's fair.
But like Catechins and a scouting Chimera were close to that. I mean, they don't have the flexibility of just being like, oh, I just,
Yeah.
this little 3-inch line off your unit and just line your whole board edge with it or whatever, the whole
Yeah.
front of your arm zone. But
I'm just
yeah,
excited to have nice things, you know? I'm like, oh my god, we got normal uppy downy. Holy crap. Like,
what were they before? It was a weird phase when they went up, right?
so it was the same time as rapid. So what you do is like you're the controlling player. In the
Yeah.
reinforcement step, you deep strike them, and then at the end of the movement phase, you're like, hey, are you gonna rapid? And then they go yes or no, and then you just pick it back up. It was pretty cute. Like in Kalyan, it was really helpful into pressure. You know, like screening the Death Company brick that's about to rapid in your mouth, pushing them back a little farther without giving up a unit. It was decent.
What did you think of the guns on Vespids? Like, I mean, if that unit did damage, I think I'd be more attracted to it in my list.
Yeah,
Um,
I
I
don't.
don't see it.
I don't either. Like, I think you just get like what, the one rail rifle, a flamer, and there's like a third gun that's the better gun. Is it like a
I
blast gun, right?
thought the 5.22 was good. I like
That's on
over
just all the. That's on all the guys. All the guys just get it.
buy them in tins.
You can buy them in fives.
Oh,
They
you
don't get
can.
any of
Okay.
the special weapons. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the 5-mans. I'm just talking about a little 5-man that just like screens your backfield while everything else is pushing. You know, like maybe you lose a stealth suit unit or two, and then turns 4 and 5. Like if you get a secondary that's like I got like behind an established locus like turn 4 against my opponent. And I was like, cool. A suit unit is not doing that. They're gonna kill shit. I'm gonna score 7 points with this 65-point unit.
Sure.
Because they're just they're on the tiny bases and the deep strike. It's pretty nice. They're not like
Yeah.
scouts, you know what I mean? Like the scouts come off from the edge, and that's like eh. But the Vespid, like being deep striking and like being a tiny ass footprint,
In
pretty
a
good.
in a more traditional front to back army, I think they're great.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yep.
Monka, they're awesome because Monka wants to fight the midboard, force your opponent to put everything out. Yeah, I agree.
Guide, right? They don't have the for the
No,
greater good.
sadly no. Yeah,
They just hate fun.
yeah.
Holy.
I don't get it. They have like Tau guns, and, like they wear Tau emblems. They've got like all the techie shit going on, but like, and also it's hilarious. Like their heavy weapons hit better than like Pathfinders. Like the Pathfinder's rail rifle hits on 5s, and like the Vespid hits on 4s. It's like, all right, well, what is going on here? Like I'm confused.
One can be guided. You
Yeah, right.
know, I can totally see myself every game guiding my own Pathfinder unit.
hmm
That's what I'm for. But
Yeah, no, seriously. Cool,
yeah,
man.
okay, yeah, this has been fun, dude.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, like it's always fun to just like shoot the shit with people and like learn from knowledgeable Tau players. That's going to do it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Really humbling to be approaching 1,000 subscribers here. So if you're enjoying the content, help push me over the edge there. And yeah, just appreciate all the support and thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.